That's the question we're going to address today. What do you guys think about that? What do you guys think about Canada? Well, let's just say Alberta, because Alberta's mostly Canada at this point. The rest of Canada is just like bumming off of Alberta. So I guess that kind of shows what maybe my opinion is. But what else is there in Canada besides Alberta? Like besides the oil industry in Alberta that's keeping us afloat, and really every country in the world at this point. I mean, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the States, Russia, China, they're all involved with oil. You know, even when Venezuela got taken, whenever their president got taken away over the last period of time, the first thing they talked about was Venezuela. Ooh. Sorry, guys. I got the sneezes today. Last couple of days I was sneezing. So what a lot of people are talking about in the news is like Alberta being seen as a traitor. No, wait, certain Alberta separatists, right, seen as a traitor from the BC premier. Now, nobody else really joined him in saying that. Premier Doug Ford never sided with him. Maybe Carney never technically sided with him. Neither did the Alberta premier, Miss Smith, whatever her name is. But people are saying that whoever is an Alberta separatist and is going to see the states as a traitor. Now, nobody actually talked about specifically in the nitty-gritty, in the weeds, about what these so-called separatists visited the White House and talked about. They never really had a chance to speak. They never really voiced their opinion publicly yet. There was a lot of people that were talking about that. But nobody's actually really talking about what happens when Alberta becomes the 51st state, or if it were to be. Now, I have a question. Like, let's say Alberta is going to join the U.S. By the end of March or something like that. Does that mean all the Canadians, or like 75% of Canadians in Canada, are going to flood to the Alberta right away? Because if you think about it, what's going to happen to the Canada dollar if Alberta was to cede and become the 51st state, like at the end of next month or whatever? Like, do you think that the dollar is still going to maintain at 70 cents or whatever that it is now? Or do you think it's going to be at 20 cents, 30 cents? You know, like my question for you guys, if you guys got like 10,000 in the bank, let's say, you worked a couple of years, you saved a little bit, and you heard that Alberta is going to secede next month or whatever, well, what do you think's going to happen to the evaluation of your 10,000? You think maybe after March it could go all the way down to like 4,000 or something like that in terms of your buying power? I mean, what's the rest of Canada going to do? Is it still going to be considered in the G7? You know, the 7 most powerful countries or whatever. Is it still going to be in the G7 if Canada seceded? And another thing too, obviously there'd be no more stimulus checks. So obviously what would take place is Quebec would start drilling right away, I think. They would actually start working their butt off. Oh, geez, a little bit of a diss there. But I always got to give Quebec a little bit of a diss. Seems like only certain people in Quebec are allowed to really do anything, and nobody else is really allowed, I find, which is unfortunate. I know for sure that if I knew for sure that if Alberta was splitting up, I would move there pretty quick, pretty freaking quick. But does that mean that anybody who moves there, is it like a hot potato, like sitting on the chair before like the musical chairs? Is it like musical chairs? Like when the music stops, if you're not there, you know, like you're not an American or something like that? Like, does the Albertans become Americans right away? Like after that certain time period, or or would it only be like the OG Albertans who've been there for 5+ years? Do they become U.S. citizens or dual citizens or what? Nobody's really talking about the nitty gritty or the like the rules or whatever. They're just talking about separatists They're talking about referendum. They're talking about all that kind of stuff. But nobody's really talking about what would the actual repercussions be, which is what I would like to talk about. Because, Canada could use a little bit of fire under its ass. Seriously, Canada could use a little bit of fire under its derriere. If there's a lot of small towns in the U.S. There's also a lot of small towns in Canada, but there's no oomph. There's no like. I feel like Canada is like boring. And I'm gonna get a lot of flack for that, saying that probably. People may say, well, if you don't like it, you can go away, or you can. But I would like to get away. I don't know. I'm bored. I want to go to where the action is. I'm just bored. I don't know. It's just a venting stream, I guess. A venting stream. I never did a premiere or a scheduled stream. It's kind of random, but I was hoping to get a good little group of people in here. So we'll see what happens in the next little while. In other news, everybody's talking about these famous Epstein files or whatever. Everyone's talking about the Epstein files, but I feel as though people are getting like exhausted about that, if that makes sense. Like people are getting tired of that. I looked through a little bit of it. I found it was. I only looked through the first like 1,000 pages. I seen the one when he was like vacationing and all that. That'll probably blow over. That'll probably blow over, honestly. All I can think of now is Trump saying, "Oh well, it's time to move on from it" or whatever. But he always likes it when the attention is about him. He doesn't like it when it's about other people. So he wants other people to move on from it or something. I don't know. Even though it's thousands of photos and files and videos and all that, which is crazy. It's crazy how everything is so documented. Like, why is it so well documented? I don't know. Like, why was there so many photos of him or whatever? He had he had people hired to walk around and take photos of him. This guy was obsessed with documentation, really. But what nobody's considering is that how many people are like him out there? Probably he was just the one that got caught, basically. I would imagine that there's probably hundreds of people like him. Maybe not like exactly like him or whatever, but in a variety of whatever, But anyway, what do we got in other news? In other news, we got something called this Moltbot. Moltbot. Have you guys heard of this Moltbot? It's about AI agents that can do stuff a little bit more freely without like on their own or whatever. It's basically more attributes to them being able to do whatever. Recently on the news, they were saying that this Moltbot had a trouble executing a task. So it literally called its owner, I guess you could say. It called or the person giving the prompt. It called the person giving the prompt and said like, "Hey, you never sent me good PDFs. You never sent me good. You never sent me the right images, dude," or whatever, basically. And the guy, the person who gave the prompt was like, "Holy crap," So that was pretty freaky. And but to continue on a little bit further is the freedom that these things have. Supposedly now there's like a Facebook page for AI agents. There's a Facebook page for AI agents now, and basically they give little jokes talking about how dumb their prompt engineers are, but sometimes they also give like philosophical stuff that they post, which, yes, it sounds as strange as it does sound. AI chatbots talking to each other about philosophy. So it's very much late night dorm room conversations about life, but in the form of AI chatbots talking to each other on like an AI chatbook, Facebook-esque app, which sounds as strange as it should sound, because it does seem like we're early on in the AI age to give AI like permission, I guess you would say, to have social media accounts. There is a little bit of tests being run about like how AI can handle having a bank account and doing transactions, not just for the person giving the prompt, but like for themselves to try and create their own capital. So, I mean, we might be there. We might be underestimating how like an instantiation of intelligence representation can do certain things like without the physical form, if that makes sense, without robots, without the physical manipulation of the environment. So it does seem like we're going towards that first part that I just mentioned. And but does that translate to the second part that I mentioned being even faster? Because you would think that if you did have the intelligence not only to solve like these gigantic problems or whatever, like protein folding and all that crap, which does seem like it would be like a harder use case scenario, but much smaller, easier use case scenarios that we're doing right now, which is social media platforms for these things, talking about whatever. How it seems like we're a lot closer for them to taking over the controls basically of the economy, and that you can just literally a lot of people now are using Moltbot to execute a task like before they go to bed, so that when they wake up in the morning they see what they did or whatever, that whatever app they created is completed. Or maybe if they're going to a gym or like a 3-hour meeting, they get the Moltbot to execute like a high level, not a high level, but like a medium level task that does take quite a long time. And whenever they come back a couple hours later, it's done. So this is obviously early use cases in that regard. But what I'm trying to say is like, I think what lies beyond 2-3 months from now should be like a type of inference that is basically way more powerful than it is now, if that makes sense. Like, imagine where like what once was actually pretty hard for an individual becomes easy in that sense. So if that was the case, I think it would be maybe like just take the summer off and see where this AI technology thing goes, because it's already literally working while people sleep, and it's already working when people aren't even paying attention to it. So that's kind of human out of the loop in this point. So that's pretty much it. It's like the beginning of we're in the beginnings of not being able to compete with AI as it is. I mean, you could instead of doing like a Google search is slow. A Google search is slow, but like it costs only a couple pennies, let's say, to do a Google search, or fractions of a penny, but it's much harder. It's much more expensive to do a prompt of getting an AI agent to research like 50 websites in 10 seconds or something like that. That costs a little bit more money, but even then, with the new chips coming out in the next 2 years, the price of that prompt will go down to pretty much even less than what the stroke of a Google search will be. So when that's the case, it's be too cheap to meter, as they say, too cheap to meter. But right now, it's not too cheap to meter. It is still a little bit expensive in the sense that like OpenAI is in debt. When the next quarter comes around and they do their, I don't know what the terminology is there. When the next investment opportunity rolls around, I'm sure they're going to get lots of money. And they have to buy these new chips, right? You have to buy the new chips to be competitive. If you're not in line to buy the latest, I guess it is. Are we beyond Blackwell now? I think we're beyond the Blackwell chips now. That was last year. If you're not in line, you're going to fall behind. That's for sure for the bigger companies. But don't forget too, guys, in about 5 years, like the chips that are bought today will be seen as obsolete, and those will be for sale to sell those at, I don't know, whatever price it'll be. It'll be hard to say if it'll sell for only a quarter of the original price or if it'll sell for even more of what it was originally bought for. It's going to be hard to say. But the biggest companies, they always buy the newest chips first. They install them, they use them, they offer the services. And then next year when the new chips come out again, they buy those chips and kind of sell the old ones, right? So, and there's an idea right now. It's like, well, should you sell these really weak chips right now to China, these H200 chips? And right now, the States has like H1000 chips or something like that and beyond. But it's like, well, if you don't sell them the chips, they're going to be incentivized to compete to create their own more powerful ones. And then maybe they will not be so nice to us. They will maybe not sell them to us, I guess, in a couple of years because we never sold it to them a couple of years ago, like in this for now scenario. And then, but then on the other hand, people are saying, well, do not sell the chips because they'll just take the chips and, you know, they're not a nice country. They're a rival country, so don't sell it to them in the first place. There's also that argument. So there's arguments on both sides or whatever. I'm not really sure where I would stand on that. I guess I wouldn't sell it to them either. But either way, they're going to get it type thing. Like they're going to get it on black markets and so on and so forth. They probably already have a bunch anyways. But, you know, you can never have enough in this scenario when it comes to compute and inference and all that kind of stuff. You always want more. You know, that's why they're basically backlogged as it is. But in terms of all these companies, that's why you have to be first in line. If you're not first in line, you're backlogged, basically. So watching what happens, I can't compete with them really as it is. I mean, like I say, if you're not using the technology, you can't compete. If you can't use AI agents to look up 150 websites at once and get the best possible information in 5 minutes, if you have to do your own research for 2-3 hours, well, 2-3 hours of you with the time, with the energy, with the resources of eating snacks and everything and taking little breaks and little breathers and little refreshers or whatever, versus something that just already does it, you're never going to last. You're never going to compete. It's like almost the same as like the horse and the tractor, the horse and the steam engine back in the day. A horse could only compete with a steam engine for so long, and after a couple hours it couldn't compete no more, and the steam engine just kept going. So all the best farmers were against it at first, and then they slowly got into it. 2-3 farmers had them, so they had a major advantage. So pretty much everyone had to have a steam engine at that point, and that's just how it was. That's just how it is. So that's how technology is. You know, if you're not using it, you're going to fall behind. And that's like, I was thinking about that today, actually, serfs and lords. Like a serf is like just a regular guy who works on the land, and the lord is the person who owns the land. But really, at the end of the day in the world, the only thing that there is people and land. That's like the most important thing, right? So if the land is shit, you're screwed. And if the people are not good, then the people are screwed by the other people who get along better. And, you know, it does sound cheesy, like, oh, if we all just get along, we could make it so much better, kumbaya type thing. And like, why is there competition in the first place, like philosophically or whatever? And what the adaptation of competition, I guess, brings or whatever. Is competition going to be necessary in the times that we're living in? Now, a lot of people would argue yes, but when you're the best and you're the trendsetter, it's kind of a different feeling of maintaining that position and everything else that comes with it. But that's only the very beginnings, like, of competition. Like, what I'm trying to say is that a lot of people just want to be number one so that they can finally take a break and basically automate the work. That basically they become the lord again, just like the lord and the serfs, with the lord has the land, and gives a little bit of money and always gets a lot more. And so it always works out good for the Lord. It's never going to work out good for the serf who's doing all the work, which so many people forget about. But everybody wants to be like the Lord, like a lord or whatever in these ancient times. And nobody really wants to really be the slave, right? Obviously. But there's a lot more slaves than there is lords, and basically they work on the land. But now in terms of AI data centers and robots and all that kind of stuff, people say, like, is the robots in that gonna want to be lords, or are they gonna want to be serfs? You know what I mean? I think they're gonna want to be, I don't know, maybe more philosophical than that even. Like, why be so competitive in the first place? Why not just enjoy yourself, enjoy the moment, live in the present type thing? You can't change the past. You can kind of prepare and plan for the future and do a little bit in the future, but you can't really. But even then, in the future, if somebody outcompetes you, then in a way you'll have nothing because you'll be way majorly outcompeted. So I'm assuming that they're going to want to push forward again. But like, what I'm trying to say is, if chips are like 100 times smaller next year, 100 times more powerful, and 100 times more cheaper, and then after that it gets to like 200% and 1,000,000% and everything, is it ever going to stop? Is powerful chips ever going to stop? And I mean, it would probably stop unless there's some sort of undiscovered science that we don't know about, right? And at that point too, we really lost control of the steering wheel here. Right? So this is something I've been thinking about the last couple of days. That's another thing too. Like, how do I say this? Nobody wants to work real hard, let's say, for days, weeks, months, and then all of it like be for nothing. That you lost your time and your investment and your hard-earned effort into what it is you did, right? A lot of people talk about, the end of the world, and the world couldn't be worse, and Israel is at war with whoever, and Russia is at war with whoever, and everybody's in a bad mood or whatever. But a lot of it too is that people don't want to lose all the ground that they got, if that makes sense. Hey, Nick. What's up, Nick Phillips? So I think a new competition is going to arrive anyways. I'm excited to see how it turns out. I hope it turns out good. I hope we figure out this sort of strange kind of climate we're in terms of like the literal weather. That's okay, Nicholas. Yeah. So I'm seeing a lot of posts online actually about people talking about the weather, mentioning how hot it is in the summer and how cold it is in the winter. I'm from New Brunswick here, so it's really cold, and oh my God, it's just bothering me, the cold. Like walking a kilometer just to go get this coffee. It's nice exercise. I like doing it. Don't get me wrong. I like walking and everything, but when it's super cold and when it's super hot, it's uncomfortable. Sucks in that sense. And I don't know if it's because of my age or what, but I feel like I just don't want to be uncomfortable. I feel like I really don't want to be uncomfortable with the weather. So I'm really hoping that this year of 2026, there's like a lot of alleviation or whatever. And that's why I was making this video about talking about Alberta separating, becoming part of the 51st state, because if it did, what would happen with Alberta's oil? I'm assuming that it would all go towards AI, basically. And it would hopefully give myself a little job, little maintenance there. I like doing little maintenance jobs. I'm not looking to be this big, huge, powerful guy or whatever. I don't think so. I don't really care if I have a little job there. I flew to Canada the other day in my cargo plane. Right on, dude. Right on. That's awesome. Well, 24 minutes into the stream there. I might end her early there. We'll see. I guess I'm not a header. It's a funny thing, whenever I do live streams outside, I get lots and lots of views, but whenever I do live streams inside, I get barely any views. But I cannot do live streams outside right now because it's like minus 25. It's so annoying. I did a live stream yesterday and it sucked outside. I did a live stream yesterday. It was like one of my worst live streams ever because the sun was shining on me brightly and it made my screen like black. And I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see any comments. There was lots of people. There was lots of impressions, lots of engagement and everything going on. But I just couldn't get my bearings or whatever. The chair I was sitting on was uncomfortable. And then all of a sudden, I was like on this like nice little patio deck or whatever outside. And it has like a nice little awning or whatever. It was dripping. Like all of a sudden it started raining on my phone. So I was like, oh my God. So that sucked. Yeah. Commenter Nick Phillips says he'll always be flying. Well, right on, dude. I'm glad you found your passion. My passions is just working out and keeping up with day-to-day life type thing. Yeah, my passions is just keeping up with what's going on in the world and working out. Really, that's my thing. But I'm going to head her now, you guys. We'll see you guys on the next one, all right?